enjoyed our show. I was talking in the chat room when we talked about trades because you talked about what trade you made, and I made a trade this week. You know,
All right, well, give me the trade and let's give you some evaluation to see how you did.
I wanted to put in. I can tell you my trade off the top of my head, but there was another trade that sort of predicated. It's in my 16-team dynasty league, so dynasty has a little bit of a different dynamic than other leagues do, and like there are a couple different strategies that people use in dynasty. Some people will like tank for years, buying up all sorts of prospects, right? And other guys will sell off, and just try to compete every year. I try to kind of do the in between thing. We have a 20 team minor league, and I like to like matriculate 4 or 5 players every year to the pros to bolster my roster for cheap prices. So I don't go really nuts with stuff, but this year it looks like the two best teams in our league are my team and this team run by a gentleman who probably will listen to this show by the name of Matt Cohen. Hey, Matt, because I know he subscribes. He told me he subscribed to all these shows that I'm on. Anyway, so he can hear what I'm thinking. So he made a trade, and I felt where he got Rich Hill. I think that was the big thing in his thing. So I felt I had to make a trade because that's the way these things work. Is you have this nuclear arms race, right? So it wound up kind of getting a little bit out of hand, and I wound up trading for Javi Baez. All right. So the trade went. I got Javi Baez at $23, and Lance Lynn at $5, meaning they'll be $28 next year and $10 next year. And I gave up.
Okay.
I gave up a $3 Castanera. Who's the other guy on the deal? I gave a
Keston here at how much though next year?
$8, and actually he could be $3. He can still be minor leagued, and if you put him in the minor, he won't go up at all. So it'll be a $3 Castanera. The truth is, like if you're a good player in this league, you could go for $35 pretty easily. So a player is cheap. If a player is dirt cheap when he's under 13, that's the average per player, right? But if you're a good player, like if you're buying Francisco Lindor, it's going to cost you $44. If you're buying Justin Verlander, it'll cost you 33. Like good players are in the 30s each. So he's got Hura for 4 years, pretty sweet. 6 years probably. Versus I got Baez for 2 good years, right? And he also got he got Hura, he got my Julio Urias for $3, and Danny Jansen and Kevin Mayton. Remember him?
Sure.
Like he was at one point the biggest prospect in the history of the world, and I think the trade was fair.
The trade sounds very fair. It just depends on what position you're coming from, whether you're rebuilding. You obviously got the best player in the deal overall with Javi Baez, but he may have gotten the better value long term if especially if he's trying to stack prospects.
That's what I'm saying. Like a $3 Hero versus a $23 Baez is pretty close to fair on its own.
Now, can you answer me one question? Is it a standard 5x5 or is there on base percentage?
No,
factored in?
It's a points league, so every positive stat counts.
Okay,
so
cool.
Doubles count.
Yeah, Javi Baez isn't as much of a detriment in the points league as he can be in an on-base league.
It's that sort of thing. So Baez is easily a top 20 player by the way the thing works out, and it's like I'm just like looking at my future, and I was thought my future because I have Vlad Guerrero, so I have Vlad Guerrero at 6,
sure.
at third base, and I have next year Rhys Hoskins will be at 16 at first. And so I was going to have like a $6 here at second, and I still have I'll have a $31 Trevor Story at the shortstop. But now my middle is Trevor Story and Baez, but they're already established great players. You know what I mean? Versus the who knows what with Hura. I really felt something was up. I mean, Hura was good when he was playing, but when they sent him down, it really just took the winds out of my sail. And it's the same thing.
Do you know what it was? I think the main two factors, and I talked about this a little bit when I did a solo show a couple of weeks ago. One was the fact that he was not walking. I want to say he only had 2 walks to 30 strikeouts or whatever the ratio was. It wasn't good. So that was the one knock. People were trying to justify why they would send him down. And obviously, they wanted to give Shaw another chance.
So what it comes down to on my end when trading him away, it's like you basically have, like, when he's in the minors, he's free. He's dead. He's no detriment whatsoever. But once he comes up, he's really got 2 years to produce, or else he's going to be undervalued. Like guys I'm watching a guy that I used to have, Lucas Giolito, really come into his own. But I traded him 2 years ago, literally for $20 of fab money because it was just so bad.
He was so bad. He was honestly the worst pitcher in baseball, and I don't know what he's done to change that. Because, like I said, he was so lights out in the minors. I remember scouts talking about him being a better prospect than Steven Strasburg was. You know, and I put a lot of stock in that at the time. And he dominated, in the minor leagues. And I really thought he was going to be a quality big leaguer, and he just struggled. But something clicked for him this year, and he's just put it all together, which is out of this world what he's doing right now.
I'm regretting it now, but the truth was, had he, because he would have grown by $5 a year, in order to keep him. Now the new guy gets to reset him. You know what I mean? At a slightly lower rate, but it's like, would you have kept Lucas Giolito going into this year at $15 or $16? It's like, that's too pricey. It's like it's going to.
No, I would not have. You made the right decision because he was not drafted in most leagues this year.
Now, admittedly, the new guy gets him, and it's like $10 or whatever. But because literally, the trade happened, the guy got cut, and then he went into the waivers, so he came out at a waiver price. But he's still, even at that price, he's still probably only got a couple of years at that thing. But I think Hura's in that same boat. I think that when I look at what's going on with the Brewers, I don't know if Hura, is going to produce at the level that we need him to as a fantasy player in 2 years. I don't know it. I just don't know. I mean, it's probably
going to be a very interesting situation, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see the Brewers deal one of those three guys, either Hura, Moustakas, or Shaw, at the trade deadline for a starting pitcher.
But have you been paying attention to just how good Moustakas has been this year?
Dude, Moustakas is going to probably be the starter in the All-Star game. I mean, of course I've been paying attention to him. Yeah, he's got 19 homers right now. He's been amazing.
Yeah, he's never been this good. He's always been good, but he's never been he's got everything.
He's also went from hitting one of the biggest pitchers parks in baseball to one of the best hitters parks in all of baseball.
But this isn't his first year
with a way better lineup around him, and a guy who's
first
arguably
year in Milwaukee. He was in Milwaukee last year. He's substantially
he was only
better.
there, but he only came over at the All-Star. He only came over at the trade deadline last year. This is his first full season in Milwaukee.
Well, I'm just saying that, what he's done in the first half of this year dwarfs what he did in the second half of last year. It's just he looks like he's going to hit 45 home runs. But the bigger thing is that much like Joey Gallo, is that he's keeping his average up to a spot where he's not a hindrance that way. He's a guy that, if somebody said, I think Moustakas had 30 home runs, I'd say, yeah, that could probably happen. If somebody said that he's going to hit 270, I would have said at the beginning of the season, no way. He's already hitting well enough that even if he tapers off, he's probably going to wind up in the high 250s, which is still good for him. But there's the Moustakas thing, and they also have another prospect that I have in my minors that is really good, is Bryce Turing coming up. Now, of course, he can take the shortstop.
I can't say I know a lot about him.
He was their first round pick last year, drafted as a collegiate. Drafted as a collegiate. He was the college player of the year, his junior year, or was he the high school player of the year? He was a very well liked prospect who sort of was number one for so long that people stopped calling him. Started getting tired of him, and so he kind of dropped to number 5 or 6 by the time the thing came around. And he's tearing up the minors. Now, admittedly, he could take, unlike the other guys, he's got the skills to take Arcia's spot. So maybe it doesn't really play into that thing. So I'm just bringing up a guy to break that I have.
Arcia's the guy who's had a pretty decent year this year.
Really? I don't know.
Orlando Arcia has had a decent year for where he was playing in last year. He did not have a very good year at all. But this year he's been ownable. I mean, I know I own him in a 15-team league.
In 15-team, he's ownable, but then again, at 15-team, I think that the league that I play in at 16-team is very interesting, but I understand that most teams don't play in. Most people, if you took the number of people who actually play in a league where you roster 48 players, it's probably 1% of 1% of the fantasy population, And last year I played in, the home league that I'm not the commissioner of, I played in a 12-team league where Mike Moustakas was on the waiver wire at the end of the year. He just, in a 12 team, in a 12 spot, he wasn't.
You're talking about last year.
Yeah, last year. It's like you have to be pretty good to break into a 12 or a 10 teamer, because you literally have to be, if you have to be the top 10 third baseman, or if you have a corner infield spot, you have to be, say, top 15 third baseman, because half the corner infielders will be first baseman or whatever. And he's right. He was right at around there. He's like the 14th, 15th best third baseman.
Well, answer me this: Moustakas right now is on another 1-year deal. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
He got like a 1-year, like $11 million or $8 million, just something just ridiculous. Do you think that if he continues to play decent at second base, starts the All-Star game, and hits 40 plus homers out of that second base position, do you think that he's primed for a contract next year, like an actual 5-year deal that he actually gets paid something?
I mean, I've told you about my theory about people with their backs up against the wall, figuring out a way to make things work, not saying that they're taking drugs or anything along those lines. But it's like, could there be anybody more frustrated with the way baseball is working than Mike Moustakas?
I mean, maybe Dallas Keuchel right now. I mean, Craig Kimbrell's got to be in that same boat.
No, the difference with Moustakas is this is like going into this year. Was this like the third year he was kind of jerked on his contract?
Second. It was the second year around.
Well,
he's been back to back 1-year deals. Yeah, because he got screwed, and he signed late last year, and then he re-signed with the Royals for $8 million when his qualifying offer was 17 that he turned down from the Royals. And then same thing this year. He thought he was going to get a multi-year deal, and ended up with like a 1-year, like $11 million deal from the Royals.
And so
not the Royals, the Brewers.
Whether it's that incredible flip,
God, Toronto's hit a 3-pointer. This has been a great game, man. It's 104-101 right now. About 3 minutes left.
Well, we'll broadcast the score live to anyone who's listening out there.
We keep an eye on it over here.
Yeah, Royals 29 Boom says he's always been good average, low OBP though. You're probably talking about Baez. Probably not. That doesn't really look. Moustakas is the opposite. He's low average but a better OBP. Kind of guy.
Kevin was having an interesting conversation today talking about that. I was kind of talking about it a little bit in the chat room today about just in general, like that hit tool. It's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit, and I made a comment in a chat section talking about how unless somebody challenges Joe DiMaggio's hit streak or flirts with 400 again, I think you're going to continue to see more hitters like Bryce Harper, those 3-2 outcome guys, strikeouts, homers, or walks.
I think that the world works on a wavelength. It's like ebb and flow, and I think that what we do. Did you ever read Aristotle's The Laws? There's an ideal mix of whatever we're supposed to do, right? And what happens is, you decide like you're going to be more conservative in your thinking, but when you get to too conservative, then the world kind of bends back, and you become too liberal, and then it bends back, and there's sort of like this line that's at the middle of the wavelength. And I think that baseball has gotten to the point where it's too homer centric.
Sure.
that teams are going to find ways to win differently. And it wasn't really that long ago that teams found a way to win differently, completely different than what they're doing today. I mean, you can point to the Royals World Series and the Giants World Series, and those teams look nothing like what people are doing today.
Yeah, those teams were built around pitching and really, 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 really good starting pitching, a solid bullpen, and clutch hitting. That's all it was.
And I look at the team, and I know it's a really bad team, but I look at a team like the Miami Marlins, and they're finally getting to a point where they're, even though the guys they put in their outfield like Harold Ramirez and John Bertie and Austin Dean aren't exactly household guys. These are the kind of guys that you sort of need to play outfield in a stadium that big.
Sure. And I think the Giants realized that this offseason by going and getting a guy like Kevin Pillar to man center field, where there's just been a black hole out there and they try the Denard Span experience, et cetera, and there's just been nobody good there for years.
Yeah, even Pillar's been pretty darn awful, but
defensively he brings a lot to the table. He's going to be a difference maker going forward. He doesn't need to hit.
You've been watching him though lately. Hasn't Pillar been playing right field and Duggar playing center, which I thought has been
Duggar's nice too. Duggar's got wheels as well.
It's like I mean that speaks to Duggar. You know, like if they're playing Duggar at center field over Pilar, Duggar's got to be a pretty good fielding center fielder.
Yeah,